I still don't know what to rate this film. Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens was directed by J.J. Abrams. It's the first film produced by Disney. It started the sequel trilogy. I've been loving this film since 2015 when I watched it in theaters. I've always loved it. Even though I have some issues with it, I always thought it was a great movie. And I've watched like 8 or 10 times during the last 10 years. I really have shifted my opinion on this movie radically, like since last night. You can imagine what was my reaction watching it last night with some friends, and I've been watching every single Star Wars film in the episodic saga with them, with the ones who have never seen it, to get an objective point of view. The first scene that I thought, okay, they are not gonna like this film, is when Poe makes this joke.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
And this recurring joke between us started saying, oh, this is so Disney. Oh, this is a very Disney moment. Oh, Disney sucks dicks. And all of that stuff. Okay? For each joke or each moment that felt very Disney for them. And at first I was like, oh, Jesus, guys, calm down. I know, it feels very Disney. I get it, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. We got into the second act, third act, and I realized, oh my God, this movie is not holding up as much as it did 10 years ago. Not even as much as it did the last time I watched it before last night. Still, there's good things about this movie. The first act is actually still good. I really like a lot of the first act. My favorite thing about it, and something that I've always appreciated about this movie, is the way that it introduces characters. And normally, when you introduce characters in blockbuster movies, or any movie, you are introduced with their backstories or a dialogue that express who they are and all that stuff. What I love about The Force Awakens is how it introduces characters showing their behavior, their personality, or their reactions to situations. For instance, the first scene with Finn, he's running around the battlefield and he approaches a stormtrooper to check if he's okay, and the stormtrooper stains his helmet with blood. And the way that he reacts to it, you're like, okay, this is not another stormtrooper, a cold-blooded killer or whatever. He's someone different. And then he's asked to kill the villagers, and all the stormtroopers kill the villagers except for him. That's good storytelling. Something that I always found to be bullshit is that you need backstory to create good characters and all that stuff. Yeah, backstory helps you to give more context to things, but it's not totally necessary. And I think Force Awakens shows that, because there's not a single explained backstory in this first act regarding to the characters. Rey, for instance, one of the moments that shows her values is when she's like offered to sell BB-8 and gather all this food that she needs, and she's like, no, I won't do it, because like he's now my pal and I want to sell this droid to these bad guys. Those things are really cool. Those things create characters. Rey, let's talk about her, because there's been a lot of criticism around her. I like Rey in the first act of this movie. I used to like her a lot in the entire movie, and I don't do it anymore. Yeah, let's talk about the Mary Sue thing. I don't know, like, okay, yeah, she knows a lot of stuff, but I think there's a logic behind it. She is a scavenger that has been living alone in this Jakku desert throughout her whole life. She knows a lot about survival. It's natural that she knows a lot of things. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me now about her character is that there's no tension. There's not a single scene that I believe that Rey is in danger, in this film at least. There's not a single scene. Because she is like very powerful with the Force, but she's also like she has a lot of skills, piloting and all that stuff. So as the movie goes on, there's like this thing that she's perfect at everything. So there's no tension, there's no interesting development with the movie. The best way that I can explain you this, the scene where she actually, like, for the first time uses her force powers with the stormtrooper to make him do what she wants. That scene should have been a scene of like, oh my God, she did it, oh, she's a badass, you know. For instance, Luke does that in the Death Star Trenchton sequence when he basically destroys the Death Star. It's that moment because he's like, I'm not using this computer, I'm using the Force, and you feel that, fuck yes. You don't feel that with Rey in this movie, not even in the climax. You don't feel that. There's not a moment of accomplishment with the character, and that makes her character kind of boring, bland, and a total disconnect. And so, yeah, Rey doesn't work anymore for me. The first act does. The first act introduces her, and I am like, okay, this is a normal person. But there's some aspect with her that she's afraid to touch the lightsaber again, to like and know herself better, and this thing that she doesn't want to go back to Jakku. But for most of the film, I'm not interested in her character anymore. Now, Finn, on the other hand, I've always loved Finn, always, and I still love Finn. Yeah, some jokes are very Disney-like my friends kept saying throughout the whole evening. But the thing about Finn that I love is that his character is very relatable because he's someone who doesn't want to be in war. He doesn't like war. It's not a coward. He doesn't like war, and that was something that it touched with me a lot when I was 15 years old because I've always been against war, and so I love that about the character. But at the same time, he's willing to go and save his friend Rey, no matter what, no matter if he has to duel a Sith Lord or that it's not Sith Lord, it's a Ren Knight, whatever. And I love that about that character. So that character I think is still intact. I think it still works. And yeah, I've heard all the criticisms around the fact, the constructive criticisms that he should have been the main protagonist of the sequel trilogy. And I've always seen that criticism. I was like, okay, fine. I don't care. Like, yeah, I like the character of him more than Rey, but Rey is fine. Now I totally get it. I totally can get behind that. I never thought I would ever say that. Han Solo is one of the brightest spots of this film. Finn is my favorite new hero, but Han Solo is my favorite hero of this entire film. And you can tell that his dialogue is easily intact. It feels very pure. While the dialogue in the rest of the movie feels very Disney-like or very commercial. And so Han Solo remains intact. I love that character. I love everything they do with him. When it's about the action sequences, I still like most of them. I like the stunt team. The stunt team is doing really cool things here and brutal things. And there are very intense action sequences like J.J. Abrams likes to do. But that's mostly like the extent of the action sequences. They're entertaining. There's no tension. There's no suspense. And like I said, most of them is fine. And the CGI is really good. Although, and this is something that also surprised me, the CGI in The Force Awakens, when it's about Maz Kanata and Snoke, it doesn't hold up anymore. And a lot of people praise this first film because it had a lot of practical effects, and they say, oh, this is gonna hold up for an entire life. You know, people that fanboy over The Force Awakens say that. Yeah, for the most part, it still holds up. But Maz Kanata and Snoke, oof, it looks rough. And the difference here is that the prequels broke the ground with effects. Yeah, some of the effects still they don't hold up anymore, but you can respect them. You can totally respect them. When it's about the effects in this movie, I don't respect them all that much because there's no groundbreaking effects here. It's just effects from 2015. When it's about Snoke, let's go to Snoke now. Oh my god, I hate this character. I hate it. And I've always disliked Snoke. This is a MCU mediocre film villain. You know, MCU movies, when they are mediocre, usually have villains that are like blah. Like Thor: The Dark World has this dark elf that I don't remember even his name. Like, that's the type of character Snoke it is. The other element that I hate about this movie is the Starkiller base. I think there's not enough words or time for this video to explain why I hate this. It's not just the fact that it's the third Death Star, because that's too much.
Not sure how to describe a weapon of this scale.
It's another Death Star.
Okay, you made a third Death Star. It's incredibly stupid. It's incredibly lazy. Okay, you did it. Okay, how about the sequences? Is there any tension, suspense? Nope, there's nothing. There's nothing. I didn't feel anything. That's when I checked out. from The Force Awakens last night. Because I was just thinking, I don't give a shit about anything of this. And it's not like, I know these characters are gonna survive. I know it. And it's not because I've watched this movie. I've watched The New Hope a dozen of times, and I still feel invested, and I still feel the suspense of that Death Star sequence, even though I've watched the movie and I already know what happens. I don't feel that in Force Awakens. I have never felt that since the first time I watched the movie. That's an element that I've never liked also as Snoke. Starkiller based stuff. It's horseshit. I hate it. There are still redeeming things about the third act. Although it's a film that it definitely progressively gets worse. The third act, there are still good things. The Han Solo's death scene is really good. It's really good. It's the one moment of the film that feels the closest to a Star Wars drama. Is cruel. It's a cruel death, and like a lot of people don't like it. I know, but I don't care. I think it's really well done. The scene is amazing, and it works for the character of Kylo Ren and for this movie. It's a really good scene. The other scene that I like is the fight between Kylo Ren and Finn. I love the moment where Kylo Ren screams at him, "Traitor!" And Finn grabs the lightsaber, turns it on. And by the way, the lightsaber has the sound has now like a bass sound. Kylo says like, "That lightsaber, it belongs to me," and Finn's like, "Come and get it, bitch!" And oh my god, that moment is really awesome. And this lightsaber duel, although not as impressive as the choreography of the prequels, there's a lot of brutality, and you feel the punches and all that stuff. It's really good. On the other hand, Rey's lightsaber duel with Kylo Ren, it's incredibly boring. Incredibly boring. It's the worst lightsaber duel I've seen until now in this marathon of Star Wars, because, like, first of all, she doesn't know how to fight. The fight feels very slow, and the worst thing about it, and the thing that I mentioned this instantly to one of my friends, was this battle would have been much better if Rey actually got hurt by Kylo Ren. Some scratch or something. At the end of the fight, she doesn't have a single scratch, which is a total opposite of what they have done with the main protagonist of the previous trilogies. Luke got his hand cut off. Anakin got his arm cut off. You know, they've been harmed in the previous films. Rey doesn't have a single scratch at the end of this fight. In fact, the villain is the one that has a big scratch all over his head. That's really pathetic. I don't get why they do that. And like, okay, a villain can have a scratch at the end. That's cool because the hero is victorious. Okay, but like punch Rey or something. I get it. It's Disney. They don't want to. They don't have balls. They don't want to risk anything. That I get it, but I needed that. I needed more intensity in this fight scene. One of the things that I have to praise about this movie, and I've always thought this was kind of genius, is the fact that the plot revolves around finding Luke Skywalker. And I love the fact that Luke Skywalker is just 30 seconds at the end of the film and doesn't have a single word. It feels like, okay, this is a film centered on new heroes, but at the same time, the main protagonist of the original trilogy is very important, but he's not that much in the film. So when he shows up, like this legendary Jedi, you really feel that, and I love that. I love the ending of the movie. The last scene. The last scene feels like this guy is like the ultimate badass, and I love that. There's not a single word. That's cool. And I know a lot of people were disappointed when they watched the film. Today, I think people are not that disappointed anymore because they can watch instantly The Last Jedi. That leads me to something that I totally dislike and I have to talk about. There's a lot of questions unresolved in The Force Awakens. J.J. Abrams has mentioned that he loves this aspect about the original trilogy of Star Wars. He makes a lot of questions while the prequel trilogy answers them, and he doesn't like that all that much. First of all, the world that is set in The Force Awakens is extremely boring from the start, because it's once again the Empire against rebels. Yeah, they're retitled to First Order and Resistance. They're basically the same thing. So what happened between these 20 to 30 years between the original trilogy and sequel trilogy? What happened that we once again got in this place again? The answer is boring. And is that Snoke appeared? Yeah, I know Rise of Skywalker says something differently, but like regarding this film, in this film alone, the answer is that because Snoke like came out of nowhere. there's not an interesting backstory here. The map, the thing that the whole plot revolves around it, why the map is separated, why the Empire archives have the map without that portion that they need to find Luke, why R2D2 has that map without that portion, but R2D2 wakes up conveniently at the end of the film to give the whole map to BB-8, and BB-8 just places the element that they were missing. What happened there? And I think the best way that I can explain my views on those elements that are not fully explained in The Force Awakens is that it feels like a video game. You know, in video games, you normally go to like finding pieces here and there without any logic. It's just a video game to have fun, you know. Maybe it doesn't make sense with the story, but it's a game. It's supposed to be fun. But there's not any logic. That's how it feels. The map thing feels like that. Like, why it's been separated. Questions the original trilogy asked made sense. What happened? How Anakin turned into the dark side? You know, those questions are interesting and they might have some logic. The map, the fact that there's once again an empire that is exactly the same as the previous empire, just called the First Order. There are boring questions with boring answers. The movie was over, we have a conversation, and while we were joking and talking about why it didn't work, there was the other side of my head thinking, I'm right now in an existential crisis, and I am. I am incredibly shocked. But I think what happened is that this is the first time that I watched The Force Awakens right after watching the first 6 films in release date order, because I have to watch all of them to keep them fresh in my mind, to give you the best reviews possible. And I think that's the reason why I had this radical shift in my opinion of The Force Awakens. One of my friends had a thought that was very interesting. He said that he felt like ChatGPT existed in 2015 and J.J. Abrams asked him to write the new Star Wars film, a film that embraces nostalgia, that mirrors the world of the original trilogy and the plot of the original film, that was born out of George Lucas's creative vision and spirit. Even the planets look aesthetically similar to the ones of the original trilogy. So to summarize my dislike for this film, The Force Awakens feels like a movie that loves George Lucas's Star Wars. That's it. On a scale from 1 to 10, I'm gonna give Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens fuck it.